Hi, this is Offbeat Gyan, and I'm back with another topic. This week's topic is climate change dangerous? How and why? I am just an ordinary person, somebody who's interested in climate change. So, this is not going to be an expert talk or anything. This is just information that I have collected over a period of time because I'm interested in this topic and I just wanted to share it with others. This is a layman's understanding of what climate change involves and the impact it can have on each and every one of us. So, coming back to the question, is climate change dangerous? How and why? Well, what happens when the earth becomes warmer or when global warming increases? And then climate changes. And the immediate question is, so what? See, most of us, we do not think about the changes that are happening around us. But some of us do, and some of us are affected by the changes that are happening around us. We think about it, we feel sad, we feel depressed about it, but then we don't talk about it because not many people are actually interested in talking about something so close, so dangerous, and something with an earth shaking impact on all of us, on everyone across the globe, everywhere, living anywhere in the world. So, climate changes and it does have a dangerous impact on our lives. I've just listed some of the things that are caused by warmer climates across the world. There will be devastating tropical cyclones, and we have been experiencing quite a few of them in India in the past few years, beginning from somewhere around 2017. Extreme weather conditions. You must have noticed that the world is getting hotter and hotter. Places like Kerala are actually hot, but then we have been experiencing extreme heat, extreme humidity during the months of March, April, and May. And nowadays it's like it's hot throughout the year. We get some reprieve, some relief only when it rains, and before the rain, also, there is this buildup of temperature. It becomes very warm, and we start sweating profusely. When it rains heavily, and the rain is scary. Earlier, it used to be something we used to call Nool Mara in Malayalam because the drops used to be smaller in size and it used to keep on raining incessantly, not heavy, just a steady pace of rain. But nowadays, it's not like that. Suddenly, there is a formation of a cloud mass, and it's like buckets are being poured onto your head from the heavens. And you might find that it is raining here in the place where you're standing, but you move, say, 500 meters, you find that it's completely dry. So that's the kind of weather condition that we are encountering nowadays. And the intensity of the rainfall, the sound and fury that accompanies the rainfall, all that is really scary. Another phenomenon that is gradually increasing every year is that of the storm surge. What is the storm surge? So I just did a little bit of reading and I found out that this abnormal rise in the seawater level. And when the sea waters rise to such abnormal levels, they start moving inland and they cause massive death and destruction. They eat away at the houses, the shoreline, and the trees. They take away everything with them. And it has led to casualties across the world. Sometimes, warnings are given by the weather department, by the Met department, but people tend to ignore it because leaving your home, leaving the only thing that you can call your own and going away to some other place is very difficult. So, storm surges are extremely devastating, they are extremely damaging, and their numbers are increasing. Every year, we are seeing rising storm surges. Then, floods, of course. 2018 floods in Kerala were devastating. We have floods across India happening throughout the year, and these floods are deadly. They cause large scale devastation and destruction, and the death toll is humongous. A lot of people die in these floods. They are not directly involved in the process that leads to climate change, but it is always the poor, the innocent, the people who are not directly involved in climate change who are affected by climate change. World across, it's the same. So, this is just some information I collected from the net and I just wanted to share it with you. 1979 to 2017, this period has seen an increasing number of extremely devastating tropical cyclones across the world. Bad weather phenomenon has actually increased. The oceans are getting warmer. The When the ocean gets warmer, what happens is it leads to moist air rising upwards. And when this moist air rises upward over the ocean, it sort of forms a funnel and the wind starts moving in an inward manner. There is a difference in the way it rotates clockwise, anti-clockwise in the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. So when this moist air rises upwards in the form of a funnel and there is this interior rotation going on, it builds a low pressure area below this funnel, leading to the formation of the cyclone. Believe me, I'm not an expert on this. I've just read about it because I'm very curious about how it is formed. I'm very curious about climate change and its impact. I'm also very worried about it. And this is information that is available on the net, and I'm just compiling it and sharing it with you. So, warmer oceans provide more fuel for cyclones, and these are the Chennai floods, which we had in 2015, 2023, 2024. These are the most devastating ones that I have just mentioned here. Flooding has been happening all through these years, but these were the most damaging ones. Then, of course, we had Cyclone Oki, the really terrifying, destructive cyclone in 2017. And I read somewhere, I think it was on Wikipedia, that during Cyclone Oki, which hit the southern and western coast of India, during that period, 80,000 kg of waste was deposited by the sea onto the Bombay coastline. It's like the sea is telling us, we don't want your waste, you keep it. We don't want it, you can take it back. And of course, in 2018, we had the Kerala floods. Kerala has 14 districts. 13 districts were affected by floods and landslides. So you can imagine the scale of the devastation. And everyone has witnessed all this on TV and on online media. So then we had the Uttarakhand flash floods in 2021, which led to massive devastation and destruction in Joshimath. Then the Tapovan hydropower plant was destroyed during the Uttarakhand flash floods. The images of complete buildings being carried away by the waters of the angry, turbulent rivers remain in our heads even today. Sikkim flash flood, which happened in 2023, this happened because the glacial lake, Lonak, it overshot its banks. There was a breach in the lake and water started pouring out into Sikkim. Then, of course, July 2024, the Wayanad landslide, which led to the deaths of more than 350 people. So, the devastation, the damage caused by climate change is actually increasing, and it is something that is going to have a massive impact on each and every one of us. It fills most of us with anxiety, fear, and worry. These are some of the images of the Wayanad destruction. This is of the Chennai floods. Okay. The Anthropocene epoch. This is considered to be the Anthropocene epoch, and I'm sure that the image, the photo that I have displayed on the screen is it suggests the imprint of human action on planet Earth, the damage that has been caused by man's presence on Earth. Human activity has caused maximum devastation on planet Earth. Until the Industrial Revolution happened, man and nature lived together in harmony. But after the Industrial Revolution and with rising industrial capitalism, man and nature turned into enemies. It was like man was in confrontation with nature, and man had to channelize all natural resources, exploit everything. And that is what is symbolized by this picture. So, this period, officially, it has not been accepted as the Anthropocene period. There are committees which are deliberating, continuing to deliberate on this particular naming, how to name this epoch. What do you call it? So you can see there is this table, and each period has been labeled there. Up to the Holocene is okay. So the period that comes after Holocene, that is the present period, there is this Anthropocene working group which considers that this should be called the Anthropocene era. But 2024 was supposed to be the year when they deliberated and they came to the conclusion that they should call this Anthropocene, but then they have rejected it. Anyway, I'm going to call it the Anthropocene period because everybody is talking about it as the Anthropocene period. We'll get to the official declaration of the name of this period later on. So, what exactly is this Anthropocene period? This is the present period during which human impact on the environment has been the highest, and it has caused maximum damage to geology, climate, ecosystems, landscape, and inland water resources of the earth. Both inland, the oceans, the seas, everything has been damaged by increasing human activity and exploitation. Moving on. After the Second World War was from 1939 to 1945. The post World War II period saw a population explosion across the world. As you all know, India is at the top of the population chart, and there has been massive explosion in the population. So, along with the increasing population, exploitation of natural resources has increased. It has also led to increasing pollution and indiscriminate use of fossil fuels like coal and petroleum. This is something that everybody knows. The rampant and indiscriminate use of dangerous man made chemicals has increased. And as the population increases, more and more people are populating the earth. Everybody requires their own space. So, massive deforestation is happening because we are encroaching into the forests. We are encroaching into the places which used to be virgin forests once upon a time. Rivers are being diverted, ponds and lakes are being covered up so that floods can come up. Dams and reservoirs are being built. So we are actually barricading water resources in order to provide water to everyone. The natural flow is being upset by increasing human activity, increasing human intervention. Okay, I wanted to talk about two very important books in this video. And the first book that I want to talk about is Rachel Carson's Silent Spring. I don't know if you've read this book, but please do get round to reading this book, Silent Spring. Rachel Carson passed away in 1964, but then this book that she wrote is a seminal book. It continues to be read even today. It's like a warning, you know. She wrote this in the 1960s, but then whatever she has written about, she wrote from the American background. But whatever she wrote about is true for the world that we are living in now. It's like a warning, and it is a warning that must not be ignored by anyone. So, who was Rachel Carson? She was a marine biologist, a writer, an environmentalist, a conservationist, somebody who really cared about nature, somebody who documented the damaging result of human activity, of human intervention in places across United States of America. She was someone who studied what man was doing to nature, how man was destroying nature. And she has written about it in this very interesting book. And she has documented what has happened across America. So this book was published in the 1960s, but what she documented in the 1960s must have actually become even worse now. She basically wrote about the impact of pesticides on the land, on plants, on birds, on insects, and that is very interestingly documented in this book. She writes in Silent Spring: over increasingly large areas of the United States, spring now comes unheralded by the return of birds, and the early mornings are strangely silent where once they were filled with the beauty of bird song. Rachel Carson wrote this in 1962 in Silent Spring, and this is something that I have read in uh, several articles, that there is this complete and total silence in most European countries and in America. That is something that is difficult for us to understand because being Indians, we are a noisy nation. We are a very talkative, gossipy sort of people. And we have all these noises around us. We wake up to bird song. I think we're very lucky that we can still hear bird song in most places in India. There is a foreword to the Indian edition of this book, and the foreword has been written by Claude Alvarez. This is the Indian edition of the book, and it has been printed by Other India Press. And we were able to get this book in India very recently, actually, although the book was published in 1962. And the foreword is titled Counting Our Blessings. And Claude Alvarez says, he's talking about the complete silence that you find in the American and European landscape, and he is commenting on that in this foreword. He says, this is to be contrasted with the experience of countries like Malaysia or India. Be it in the city or the village, daylight arrives with bird song, twittering, whistling, and cooing. The monsoon brings with it its own special sound, the chorus of frogs in the fields. Despite the imposition of development, nature continues to be alive and prolific in our part of the world. This is Claude Alvarez, the Indian environmentalist, and he is the director of the Goa Foundation. And this is a foundation, it's a environmental monitoring action group, and they continue to be very active even today. And they are working to protect the environment. So there are these groups all across India which are focused on trying to save the environment, trying to do their bit to save the environment. Okay, another book that I want to talk to you about is Amitav Ghosh's Gun Island. And Amitav Ghosh is a very familiar figure. Most of us know him as the writer of fiction and non-fiction. And the themes that he usually focuses on are colonialism, climate change, and the Indian Ocean region. Gun Island is an extremely voluminous book, but it's very interesting. And the novel moves from the Sundarbans in India to America and then to Europe, and it has a vast background. It moves to all these places and it talks about the impact of climate change in all these places. And I think we should all just at least once read the book because it is a combination of fiction and non-fiction, and you get so much information from the book about the impact of climate change across the world. So this book basically it begins in Bengal, in West Bengal, and then it moves to Sundarbans in West Bengal. Sundarbans, most of us are familiar. It's a mangrove area, and this is between India and Bangladesh. And this is a place which is surrounded by water. There are mighty rivers flowing through this area, but the people living in this place are the most impoverished, and they do not have a good quality of life because the water is subjected to mercury poisoning. And it's not done by some agency. The levels of mercury are really high, So they are surrounded by water, but they do not have adequate freshwater resources. Life is very tough in the Sundarbans area, leading to other problems like human trafficking and people wanting to move out of this place because they cannot grow anything there. And there are food shortages, there is a lack of opportunities, there is a lack of fresh water, and life is very tough. And this is an area that is prone to cyclones. So, all this is documented by Amitav Ghosh in his book Gun Island. Sundarban's delta is gradually being eroded, it's being eaten away by the seas. And this is an area which is prone to cyclones, as I mentioned earlier. And Gun Island talks about Cyclone Bhola, which hit Sundarbans in 1970. See, when we talk about climate change, we must remember that climate change is something that has a relation to a lot of other things. Climate change can even lead to wars. So, Cyclone Bhola is in one way responsible for the Indo-Pak War of 1971. Because Cyclone Bhola was really devastating and it led to the deaths of more than 1 million people. And the devastation was massive. And the government did not do what it had to do. And the cyclone had an impact on both West Bengal and then East Pakistan, which later on became uh, Bangladesh. So large chunks of the land are being taken over by the sea. Fresh water is a precious commodity, though it is surrounded by water. And I had mentioned mercury poisoning, but actually it's not mercury poisoning. My mistake. I'm sorry about that. It is arsenic poisoning. Rising arsenic levels in the water make it very dangerous to drink. And drink, hmm, excuse me, and drinking arsenic infused water is something that can have a massive impact on the human body. So, climate change has increased the level of salts in the soil and in the inland water resources in the Sundarbans area. So, soil salinity is something that makes it difficult for people to drink the water. And when there are these storm surges, when the seawater rises, it starts flowing into the freshwater resources. It starts flowing inwards. So, in the picture, what you see is the Irrawaddy dolphin. They are river water dolphins, and these dolphins they survive on fresh water. But with increasing soil salinity, these dolphins are being compelled to move into the inland waters. And when they move into the inland waters, what happens is they get caught in the plastic and the nets that have been thrown into the river by human beings. So, leading to their deaths. So, these innocent creatures, they are caught in nets in plastic, which they have not put into the water. And for their survival, because they need fresh water to survive, they move into the inland water resources. And their numbers are actually coming down. They get trapped in nets or they get into crashes with country boats or motor boats and steamers which run on these inland rivers in West Bengal. And they are dying out. Okay, now moving from Sundarbans and West Bengal to Venice Beach in LA, Los Angeles. Uh, Amitav Ghosh talks about a particular incident where his friend, a professor, and her family friends, they go to the beach and they have their dog with them. And suddenly, what happens is the dog is bitten by this snake, the yellow bellied sea snake on Venice Beach. And what is shocking is these yellow bellied sea snakes are not usually seen in that particular area. They survive in warm waters. So, because the temperature of the sea water is rising, that is why these dangerous sea snakes, they have also started moving along with the waters to warmer climates. And they are being seen in places where they were considered to be unusual. So, this is another impact of climate change. So, what we have to realize is we cannot control nature. Irrespective of the fact that people think that we can control nature, we cannot control nature. Climate change is irreversible, and nature will always restore what was changed. Now, in Silent Spring, there is a quote by Dr. Albert Schweitzer, humanitarian doctor, who has said, "Man has lost the capacity to foresee and forestall. He will end by destroying the earth." So true. This was a statement that was made by Albert Schweitzer sometime at the beginning of the 20th century. But it is something that is coming back to haunt us today. With that, I conclude my video on climate change, its impact, and the dangers. So I hope you will like listening to it, and I hope that it will encourage you to read more about climate change, especially books like Silent Spring and Amitav Ghosh's Gun Island. Thank you.